Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Leaders in Action series at the International Development Research Center. Today we are welcoming Dr. Gary Kobinger. Gary, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Gary is a scientist at the National Laboratory of Microbiology in Winnipeg in Canada. And he's also, one of the leaders in the development of a vaccine for the Ebola fever and contributed to stop the spread of the disease in West Africa earlier in 2015. But before we get there, let me ask a few questions about Gary and how he became a scientist. Where did it start?
Very, very young, actually, even primary school. I was always in libraries reading like for hours and hours, always in the section of everything that was scientific or science related, from mathematics, physics, engineering, biology, all of it was there.
And you mentioned to me in other conversation that really at that time physics and the great cosmos, the infinity was what you liked the most.
Yeah, I love the pictures and the science behind astrophysics, and I was fascinated by it. And from there, interestingly enough, I got fascinated by the very small, the microbes, things that you don't see with your eyes, but are there, and you can see with other tools like electron microscopy, for example.
Yeah, so from one end to another, one extreme to the other, from the immense to the smallest thing like virus, Ebola virus. Talk to me a little bit about Ebola fever, because people talks a lot about, oh, this is very dangerous, but fundamentally, what is it?
Well, it's a virus that that transmits not tremendously efficiently like influenza, nothing to do with it, but it does transmit, and what's devastating is it's a very aggressive disease. So the virus kills the host within days. And we're talking about, for example, 2 weeks, which 2 weeks is really fast from exposure, and then you don't know that you're infected yet for maybe a week, and then within a week of that, of starting to be sick, you may die. So it's a very fast acting infectious disease. It's devastating because of the transmission. A single case can completely isolate an entire community. Where other people from outside don't want to go in, and people that come out of that community are ostracized and are being kept. Nobody wants to talk to them, wants to touch them. So it's a very complicated situation.
And it's a virus where you were mentioning, you don't know it, and then you get very benign, signal like fever, headache, and then it becomes more aggressive, and you become very ill, and then the horror stories start. Now, you started working on the development of a vaccine, in the early 2000s. Tell me the story of, how you were able to develop this vaccine and eventually go to Africa to test it, but also to use it.
Yeah. Well, actually, I was, at the time I was in the U.S. and working once in a while in Winnipeg with Heinz Feldman, what started on one of the vaccine that's called VSV, and then I started on another one that's called adenovirus. And then we were basically together moving those two different vaccines and helping one another. And 15 years later, what we saw is that actually those two vaccines are the two vaccines that made it to phase 3 clinical trials in West Africa. With which one of them, VSV, because of a unique design of the study, has shown efficacy, which is amazing. That has shown efficacy in humans.
And, you have the vaccine, back in 2014, 2015. You want to move to the field, but you have been working in the field before. It's not the first time you get to Asia or to Africa. What have you done in Africa prior of going to Guinea to have, the vaccine used in real situation?
I mean, from 2007, we went to an outbreak in DR Congo. The Democratic Republic of the Congo, and there I realized their capacity was, there was nothing to detect or to diagnose and make sure that this is the disease, because as you said, at the beginning, it's very common to a lot of other infectious diseases, including influenza, and so it's called flu-like symptoms. And so from then, we partnered with them, and we created a research group, and we did research, and we built capacity with them. And in 2014, they went and they responded to their own, on their own to an outbreak in their country. And within 3 months, they shut it down. After, about 60-something cases. But when you show up in an outbreak, usually there is already 15, 30.
Yeah.
So it's very, very fast that they were able to control it. At the same time, West Africa was being devastated with tens of thousands of cases.
So it's a perfect illustration that, you did work for 7 years silently. Nobody knows you, nobody in Canada or even in RDC, is really aware of what's going on. But you're building the capacity. You're training a researcher. You're providing material. You're giving them the tools to respond to these situations that they have faced many times. And the result is that when it's boom in West Africa, Congo has very limited impact. Now, that was very different, in Sierra Leone, in Liberia, and in Guinea, where you have been intervening. How many people were affected in West Africa during the Ebola crisis of 2014, 2015?
Minimum 28,000. So these are confirmed. There's probably, we can imagine, there's probably a lot of cases that were not detected for different reasons. But 28,000 is the official number.
Yeah, and then you use the vaccine as a tool. It stopped the spread. It was reported in scientific journal, in the news. You became quite popular. You do more TV interview and radio interview than most scientists in Canada, and I think it's good. It gives a profile to science. But let's go fast forward because, Ebola, you'll talk this afternoon. Recently, Zika comes around. What's the story with Zika?
Zika is a very interesting story because Zika has been circulating for over 60 years. Was detected in first time in 1957. Has been circulating initially in Africa. So it was detected first in Uganda and then spread throughout Africa and then started migrating east towards Asia, Southeast Asia, jumped to islands, and then jumped to South America. And, has been spreading and doing a lot of damage in South America, especially in the past year. So it's an interesting, it's a completely different infectious disease. The spread is more efficient. If you want the severe disease is not comparable to Ebola at all. Zika is actually mild when you think of the numbers.
Yeah.
80% of asymptomatic cases and 20% of symptomatic, but not in that 20%. It's not very severe.
No.
So it's but at the same time now there's the really evidence that it's linked to microcephaly, which is a very, very serious problem.
Striking, yeah. When you see babies with small brain, this is terrible. And also we know now that it's probably transmitted sexually, which is a new way of transmission, that can contribute to the spread of the disease.
Yeah.
And we have seen also, travel advisory because, many of these countries are places where Canadian goes into the winter. Is this a real risk,
Well, it is a real risk if you're pregnant and you go to an area that is endemic. You take the risk. Now it's been demonstrated that there's this causative relationship between the virus and microcephaly. Beyond the human cost and drama, because it is dramatic, it is estimated that one case of microcephaly costs about $5 million overall.
Wow.
So it is very important that we react to this and we don't let this amplify.
And now you're working on a vaccine for Zika.
Yes.
What's the future? It took 15 years for the Ebola virus. How long will it take for the Zika virus?
Much less. So the Zika vaccine, we have been working in collaboration with people, the great people at West Star Institute, University of Pennsylvania, biotech companies, Inovio, Gene1, and we've been working together for 10 years. And not on a specific vaccine, not on Zika vaccine, on different vaccine, on a platform, something that is flexible, that is quick, that is low cost, that is stable. And we're using this now for Zika. And we think that within a year, 12 months, we'll go from the lab, which we have done already, to the clinic to at least have safety data. And the goal of having safety data in humans is it doesn't tell you that the vaccine for sure will work, but it tells you that it's safe. So then if you really have an emergency, then you want to consider that. And in the case of Ebola, when in 2014 it started, we had a vaccine in a freezer. We had no safety data.
Yeah.
So this all had to be done. So I think, you know, we are a few months away only.
And when you say platform, you know, it comes to my mind like it's almost for, you know, a carpenter having a drill. You know, the drill is the platform, but when you change the mesh, you know, you can do different size of hole.
Exactly.
Changing the mesh is like, you know, changing the disease. So, you know, what you're working is on the drill, having the right tool, and then, you know, the specificity to work on different
That's correct.
diseases. Ebola, Zika, diseases that can affect us, but that primarily problem of development. We have been working together. You have been working down in Africa. What have you learned over all these years, Gary? What was one of the key things that comes to mind vis-a-vis, you know, the science, the develop, the relationship that you built? What have you learned?
I think the main point is that all big contribution comes from teamwork. Nobody does these things alone. And that team, how do you really create a team that will reach that level, that will make those huge contributions? What I've learned is these teams have to be built initially on much more profound relationship than just a collaboration where I get something and my collaborator gets something. We've built those teams on very strong friendship. People that we call our second family in Africa, in the US, in Europe, and they are flexible. We have a very high level of respect for one another, and this is what I've learned. If you do that, you will create an environment that will, where sparks will come out.
And this is, I think, what Laval University, Université Laval, is offering you, because you're moving from Winnipeg to Quebec City, your hometown.
Yep.
What are you going to be doing there? You know, because you leave a family in Winnipeg, I'm sure you're going to continue contributing with them, but you join a new family in Quebec City. What is your vision for this new center you're going to be working in?
The vision is to continue the great work that Michel Bergeron has been doing there and has been building the entire research center. But to continue also and give it another specific angle and focus, which is the creation of a new structure that we call IRID, for IRID of whatever infectious disease is. And IRID stands for Innovative Infectious Disease Rapid Response. And it's a concept of a unit. It's more than a unit. It's a full concept. There's 200 scientists. We will be able to go from rapid detection and pathogen discovery to rapid development of vaccine, specifically for that pathogen of interest, and clinical trials where they are very strong in Quebec already, phase 1 safety trials, all this within 12 months.
Wow.
So this is the structure that we're building right now. It's going to take a bit of time, but I think we'll be there. And it'll be a great adventure.
And the developing country scientists will have access, will be contributor, will be partner in this journey?
Absolutely, absolutely. They need to be with us. We need them. We think that in this collaboration, we will learn as much as they will learn from us. And we'll create again that environment where the team is as the sparks. And it's not only, you know, the dream of beyond this, the vision beyond this is that we started in Quebec, and the dream is that it will expand, that other provinces will do the same, other countries will do the same, Africa will have their own, Asia will have their own. That's the dream.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you, Gary, for your time this
morning.
Thank you. It was great to have you. You're giving a talk this afternoon, and you know, you, I think, are representing the type of scientists that we are supporting at the center. We are all driven by knowledge, innovation, and solution. We want to make a difference at a scale that makes a difference in life and livelihood of people. We are supporting partnership, and we are doing it with leaders of today and tomorrow. Gary represents perfectly the type of scientists and teams that we are supporting in Canada and abroad in order to find solution to problems that will not go away. It was Ebola, it is Zika, it will be something else, you know, in the near future or who knows when, and we need to be prepared. Gary, thank you very much for being with us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.